How you set it up?
Something like that, like.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education for October 3rd, 2016. And our first order of business is to ask you to stand and say a pledge,
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And thank you for coming this evening, board members and members in the audience. I'd ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Mrs. Ahmed? Mr. Arce?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mrs. Lanny?
Here.
Mrs. Librera?
Here.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Mr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. McLean?
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside of the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Taping and broadcasting of meetings, regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during a 2-hour segment as limited by Comcast time constraints. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on Comcast Public Access Channel and on FiOS Channel 38. A video of the meeting can also be viewed on our website at www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then clicking on Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting can make a request in writing to the board's secretary. In your packets were the minutes for approval from the regular meeting of September 12th, 2016, and the executive session of September 12th, 2016. Did anyone have any comments or corrections to be made to those minutes? Does anybody have an objection to entering them as is into the record? So we would ask the secretary to please do that. We're going to change up the schedule a bit for this evening. We have a couple of special reports. So the first report will be our report of our student representative, Daniel Sullivan, and welcome. I think I missed your debut, or is this the debut?
Nope.
That's it. So okay, well, welcome. And we'll ask him to give his report, and then we're going to change the order and do we're going to keep the same order, the Strategic Planning Committee and then the refunding, but then we'll change up the order after that. So please, Mr. Sullivan.
Block scheduling is it's being run very smoothly so far, and a lot of the students are starting to acclimate to it very well. It's given not only me but the rest of my classmates a lot more time for the classes we don't meet every day, so it gives us better more projects and more time for tests and stuff, and it's not only improving my grade but everyone else in my class, it seems like. And last week was homecoming, and we got a lot of students after that, so that was impressive. That was one of the best years I've seen so far. So it's good.
It's good to hear some positive comments about the change in scheduling. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sullivan? No?
I'll just follow up that I was in the high school Friday, and a couple of students came up and said that they really liked the schedule and having been in the high school for 35 years, I was very surprised and pleased to hear the students like their schedule. Yeah, so no, it was good. I mean, I think the comments you made about the variety, not the same classes every day at the same time, and the project, and it looks like everybody's finding their way. No one's lost, right?
It was tough at first, but at this point, we're used to it. So
Good.
it's good. It's better than
Good.
I guess if the student's claiming too much like of an academic aspect,
We're going to change
we may
it.
want to.
We're going to change it right away. In fact, I was going to go back and say we're back to 42 minutes immediately. Right now.
No, that's great.
Because having fun in school, we don't really want
It's
that.
great to hear. It's great to hear. Thank you, and if you would like, you're free to leave the meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Or you're invited to stay if you would.
Yeah, so much fun.
Okay.
Even with the new schedule.
Block board meeting.
So now we'll move into the first of two special presentations on on the strategic planning committee report, and we would ask Ms. Valecchio to give us that, please.
Before Ms. Valesco speaks, I had asked, oh, no, go ahead, come on. I'm just giving you an introduction. I had asked at Administrative Council, I talked a little bit about, and the Administrative Council is when I meet with not just the principals, but some other directors and supervisors who oversee departments. And I asked, we talked about the plan and the board's goal, and just kind of put out there, I was looking for someone to chair it, and Ms. Valesco reached out to me. We had a good conversation, and I think, I'm very happy that she's taking on the leadership of this. And tonight we have on the agenda the approval of the committee. But I asked Gina if she'd come tonight to just give you an overview of where we see the committee going. So that's fine.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley. Tonight you received an agenda, and it's not going to be a linear process when we're going to talk about brainstorming and thinking about where the district, what our recommendations would be to the Board of Education about where are the visions, where do we want to see the district go in 5 years. But I wanted to get some type of process because this can get very unruly very quickly. So if you look down, the first thing we're going to do with once you approve the committee members, just meet with them and find out what is strategic planning all about, what's the goal of this committee, how we're going to proceed, what our process rules are going to be from a classroom term, and talk about the history. Where were we? Because I think you have to understand where we were and where we'd like to go. And then if you can notice in section Roman numeral number 2, that's going to be, we're going to take in information on that. That's called the environmental scan. Where do we see ourselves looking at a 21st century? What is the local and state trends that are happening? There may be things happening at the state level right now that are in discussions that Mr. Ursulisi or one of the supervisors can give us insight on that we may need to plan for 5 years from now. So those are some of those factors that we're going to take into place. Then also looking at what's happening at the local level. Is there something happening in town that we need to be aware of? We're in the Meadowlands area, so sometimes there could be building changing and things like that. So I want to get that information as well. And then looking at the organization, by the organization I mean the district, what are our strengths? There's many things that we're doing very, very well. What are some areas that we want to improve on? Where do we need to go? We always talk about if you just keep focusing on the good things that you're doing, sometimes you can get stagnant and forget that we need to keep pushing ourselves a little bit more. What are some opportunities? And by opportunities, I'm talking about those are like that what if, what could we do if, those types of statements. And some considerations. What are some things that we do have to take into account? And I feel like considerations are always that bring you back to reality. What do we have to, those factors that we need to take into place. And then put together a summary of where we've been. And then also looking at the organization, the mission statement that the Board of Education has, meeting with the principals to find out what they need. Mr. Sullivan will be asked to be on the committee, finding out what the students want, because this is what we're all here for, and I really like to see Mr. Sullivan share some of the things that he's hearing from his peers, just like he said about the block scheduling today. And also they have a link to who just graduated, and finding out how our students are doing in college. Talking to community members, looking at the schools, I mentioned that, and then the district mission. And then that, I see steps 2 and 3 taking a large amount of time. That's gonna be the bulk of our work, and I think if we do a sufficient job on 2 and 3, it makes the rest just fall into place. So once we get all that information, We do all our fact finding. We create our vision. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to be? And get all that information. From there, then you take that information and we're going to define, I don't know, maybe it'll be 4 goals, 5 goals, again, being realistic with what the committee is recommending to you. At that point, do you see there's on step 4, Roman numeral 4B, we would then come back to you and say, these are the goals that we've come up with. At this point, turn it back to you and say, you need to have a discussion. What do you think we need to pursue? And then find out. You may say, listen, we only want 3 out of those 5 goals. Whatever you tell us at that point, then it would come back to us to say, this is how we're thinking of defining it for you, but you would have to then, we're just here to give you some ideas. So depending on those goals that you pick, then we would define them with measurable activity. So whatever that goal is, what are we suggesting to you? And we would put it in order of priority that we recommend, and then it's going to come back to you to say, what do you think? Once that's all in your hands and you've approved it, that's when your strategic plan comes into place. That's when we start and say, listen, I need Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, because this idea, this sounds great, but it may have a little price tag attached to it that we need to go to Mr. Kelly. So those types of things. But there's no point of having those conversations till we need to know where do we want to get to. And that's going to be the guiding principles that then lead this whole process. I wish I could say it's going to happen right in order. I know it's not, but I'm going to try to keep it moving in this direction. So you'll see, then you prioritize the goals and objectives under Roman numeral 4, letter D, and then we'll give you the strategies, and then you receive the strategic plan, and then you do with it as you wish, and then from there, I just put steps 5 and 6 because that would be the next part in the process. If you were to move ahead with the strategic plan, hopefully the 2 committees could keep in talking and sharing, going back and forth and monitoring the process. Do you have any questions for me about the process that we're hoping to undertake?
I don't have any questions. I think the process that you've outlined is great. I guess I just have a comment that that I would hope that the group would consider moving forward, and that is not to, and it doesn't sound like you are going to do this, but not to let the constraints or the perceived constraints sort of limit the conversation too much at the outset.
Right.
I appreciate that we want to have realistic dialogue, but I think we also, at the point of reviewing the first set of recommendations, would like to see the reach goal and then maybe some more measurable steps that we could take in support of that.
Absolutely. What I said to Mr. Hurley, because I really want this committee to be visionary. I don't want to hear we can't. I want to hear what if, and then let's see if there's a way to do it, or maybe somebody may have a different option. So I asked Mr. Hurley for a little bit of time before we reported back to you, because I want to give this committee time to brainstorm. Just dream. Take chances, and I don't want anyone to be stifled in the process and feeling like, well, that's not going to work. I really want, let's just throw the ideas up there. Let's see if we start to see patterns, because I think that's what's going to happen is you're going to start, we may take 2 or 3, I expect 2 or 3 meetings just brainstorming to see where those patterns are emerging. Yep. And I think then that's what's going to drive, and that's where I said, I don't know, maybe it'll be 3 goals, maybe 5, but whatever comes out, that's what I really would like to see.
Yes, just to follow up on that, Ms. Volishka and I had a lengthy conversation a week or 2 ago about this very topic, and then a shorter one today. And there's a couple of things. I mean, we tried to pick people to be on the committee who we felt were visionary. That some are there because they're key people in certain positions. We need their input. But that said, we tried to find people in those positions who had visionary, some fresh faces, maybe that, but also some faces that are steeped in tradition. So there was a blending of both. And this is a difficult thing to say in front of a TV camera and the public for whoever it is. But we want to be transparent. That's the word. But we want to be maybe selectively transparent. There's going to be a discussion with the committee about we don't have to share every item that gets discussed, because in the court of public opinion, an idea sometimes could get shot down or elevated to acceptance before you've even thought through the plan. So we're going to be presenting information to the public and to the board at appropriate times, but we want to be a free flow of ideas. I'm going to serve in an ad hoc role so that I'm going to go in and out of various meetings because I don't want to be there where I may intentionally or unintentionally lead discussion. And I think, I would rather have a presentation where we have to find reasons that it doesn't work instead of, before we get to that discussion, say it's not going to work.
And that's exactly why I wanted to allow enough time for that process and really allow people just to be in a room and just bounce ideas off each other and make sure that they understand that it's not going to go anywhere, it's okay. Let's see where the group takes us.
And the thing is, too, an idea can take shape in a lot of different ways. If we don't bring the idea to the table, I mean, we have this school reorganization that seems to be going very, very well, which we didn't think we could do because we didn't think we could get the money to do. Well, we did it without doing that. So, I mean, if the committee can present ideas to the board and to the public, I think then if the idea has value and has legitimacy, we will find a way, the community will find a way to get it done. So yeah, it's going to be hopefully a free flow of ideas. And Ms. Valeshko is never bashful of presenting ideas.
No.
No.
No, not to you, Mr. Hurley.
No, not to me. So
I just make sure he doesn't say no.
But, yes.
I just had a question. It looks great. I agree. Great outline, all the stakeholder engagement. Having done some planning, I'm just wondering I know we don't want to put a time frame on it, but again, in the effort of...
My goal would be to have I'm being realistic about December and things like that with people's work schedules. My goal would to be have the steps, the introduction, the environmental scan, and the organizational values and missions have an idea by February. I think if we can let that process go through and then come back to you at that point. My goal would be to present something to Mr. Hurley for the February board
Ideally, we would love to have the committee, I don't want folks who enthusiastically, I will tell you, there's a lot of enthusiasm. The people who've been asked to serve on the committee were very excited about it, and the administrators and supervisors, when we had our meeting, were very excited about the idea. But I don't want people to feel they've just got a Supreme Court appointment and they're doing this, forever. And if we could get the committee's report finalized by the end of the academic year, that would be great. I don't know if we will. I mean, it may carry into the fall of the next year, but we would hope that by the end of the year or by the early part of the next school year, that when we get to that point where now it's in our court to decide how we want to proceed, we'd be at that point.
Right. I'm just hoping by February, though, there may be some decisions or things you need to start talking about. I'm hoping we can give you some type of goal.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
When you're looking at 2B, when you're looking at doing strengths analysis, that sort of thing, and maybe this is part of what the committee will decide, but is that kind of a holistic district view, or will it end up having to go down to building level?
That's the nice part about this committee, is it's pretty representative of the community. There's different ages, there's different people at different walks of life, so I think that'll be nice, but we're looking at it, we're going to look at the big picture, and then there may be times where we have to look at the macro and the micro and find out, okay, we're looking at the whole district, but now during the objectives, right, when we have to say, well, what does that look like, that may be something that relates to a specific school. Lincoln's building needs may be different than Pierpont's, just because of the age of the students we deal with. Or the high school, that's going to be a whole different, I'm curious to see what, Danny's going to tell me the students need. And that would be specific. But I'm hoping we take that whole, look at it holistically, but then you got to look at those components that make the whole piece run.
Anything else?
Any other questions? So, thank you for stepping up. And
I was excited to do it.
Yeah, and we're excited about it. It's good to hear that the committee members are excited, and so we just wish you good luck.
Yeah, I want to thank Ms. Valeshko, and because it will be a lot of work, on top of running the building and that she runs, and the other people on the committee. It will be time, it will be work, but I think it will be a very valuable process for us to go through. And we've also reached out kind of unofficially. We made a list, we brainstormed a list of other folks, community members, borough officials, other school officials that we will be inviting from time to time to visit the committee when appropriate. We've already had a conversation with the mayor and council that, we're forming this committee and we might be in touch with them for some input. So, like I said, people are anxious to get it approved so they can get going on it. It's an exciting time. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
You have homework too, right?
Yeah, and if you need to, yeah.
I got your plan.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll move to the second of the special presentations, which is the refunding of the school bonds. And we would ask Ms. Lisa Goret to address us, please.
Thank you. Good evening. So my name is Lisa Gorab. I'm a partner with Wilentz, Goldman, and Spitzer. I had the pleasure and privilege of serving as your bond counsel on the bonds that we're going to talk about, and we also appreciate working with you on this issue. Resolution number 9 under Finance is a resolution for this board to consider that would authorize bonds to pay off old bonds. When I talk about this, which I will be brief, think about it in a mortgage context, being able to pay off your mortgage at a lower rate. So here's the background. In 2006, in December, and January of 2007, you issued a bond issue in December and one in January. It was bifurcated for a reason. It made sense under the tax laws, and it gave you the best bang for your buck. Those bonds, those 6 bonds of about $5 million of which is left, and the 2007 bonds, there's about $7 million left, bear interest at 4%. That rate of 4% is higher than what you could issue those bonds for now. So what the resolution you're going to adopt does is permits the issuance of what's called refunding bonds, new bonds, to pay off the old bonds. The old bonds will be called or prepaid early. All the investors that hold those bonds are going to get notice. You're getting called. And new bonds will be issued at lower interest rates. In terms of the economics of this transaction, they're pretty compelling. The old bonds are at 4%. The new bonds are anticipated to be issued just slightly over 2%. What does that do for your budget over the remaining years to pay off those bonds? It saves you about $1.2 million in debt service, over $100,000 a year. Those savings are net of all issuance costs, so those are pure budgetary savings to the board. Represents a 9% present value savings. Why do I tell you that? Because the state says if you have 3%, it really makes sense to do this. You're at triple that. So you have an opportunity to pay off these bonds early. And also, so you know, this is the earliest you could have done it. It's not that these bonds could have been prepaid earlier. We have to prepay them close to the call date. So that's what the transaction would do. You're not extending the maturities. You're paying them off in the same time period that you originally told the taxpayers you would. You're essentially refinancing a mortgage with the same end date at a significant savings as resulting from lower interest rates.
Thank you. Questions? Yes.
So just to confirm, the refinanced rate is a constant rate. It's not variable. It's a fixed rate for the life of the bond.
Yes, it will be a fixed rate. Your financial advisor, Phoenix Advisors, did an RFP for an underwriter. These bonds are going to be negotiated with an underwriter. They're very, very market specific. We want that underwriter to pick the best week to sell these bonds. They're the experts in the market, and so RBC was the most beneficial RFP for these bonds. That happened to also be the underwriter on the 2006 and 7 bonds as well. And so when they sell those bonds, which we anticipate will occur October, November, that's when that interest rate will be fixed. Yes. We anticipate it to be just a little over 2%.
Okay. And I think you mentioned this, but we will pay down the bonds or pay off the bonds over the same time period as if we didn't go
That's
through this
right.
transaction.
No extension of maturity.
So some of the language in the resolution on the agenda has to do with the roles that the president and the vice president and the board administrator have with respect to being able to make decisions about the bond. Are any of those permissions or roles different with the terms of this bond versus the one that we currently have in place?
No, they are not.
Okay.
Are there any other questions regarding this?
When's the maturity date again?
The maturity date is 2028.
28, okay.
So I would just tell you that procedurally, this is the resolution also adopts a refunding bond ordinance on second reading, which is not usually what boards do. You usually don't have ordinances. Usually you see that on the municipal side. So before the adoption of the resolution, you technically do need to open a specific public hearing on the refunding to the public in the event there are any questions, and then adopt the resolution.
Okay.
Is that a separate board meeting?
So I think we have to
No,
open it.
tonight, this
No.
evening,
When you announce it to the public?
this meeting.
This meeting.
We've already
Sorry.
published the notice that a
Got it,
public
okay.
hearing would be held at this meeting on that refunding bond ordinance, yes.
Okay. And the appropriate time to do that is during the time of public comment?
As long as we do it before we vote on the
Yeah.
resolution.
Okay. Any other questions at this point?
Yeah, I have just a very quick question. How did it come about that we knew, was this always anticipated that we would go through this, or something that was more kind of have come to light and seemed like an excellent idea to take advantage of?
Well, as Ms. Goreb mentioned, the current bonds specify a call date in, I think, January of 2017, so we couldn't have done this any earlier.
Right.
So this was on in her radar,
Oh,
as
okay.
well as Phoenix Advisors, that this timetable was
okay.
approaching very quickly. So
Very good, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further
Good to
questions?
see you again.
Thank you.
Okay. So if you can just hold on for a few more minutes here, then I think what we're going to do is depart from our regular schedule of on the agenda, and
Go straight to finance.
yeah, well, just to this one resolution, and then we'll come back if it's okay for all. So, I mean, there's no reason we can't do that.
No, Mr. Kelly, we're good with that, right?
We're okay with departing? Okay.
You want to open the meeting?
Yes, so the first, the next order of business then would be at 8:02 p.m. to open the floor to the public for any comment specific to Finance Resolution, what was it, 9? 8? Finance Resolution 8. Still at 8:02, yes? So if you, just to follow a procedure, if you would come to the microphone, state your name and address, and then state your question, please.
Dennis Healy, 108 Woodland Ave. And just hearing about the refinance, the question is there a fee for the actual refinance?
And we would ask, yes, we'd ask you to, yes, please.
Yes, there are fees. There's an official statement, which is like a prospectus that the board has to prepare, because bonds is a fancy word for a loan, but they're securities, just like IBM securities that are sold in the market. So yes, there's a preliminary official statement. There's a bond purchase contract. There's a financial advisory fee or fee. All of those fees are already netted out of those savings.
So the present value savings of approximately 9% that you quoted is net of all of those?
Net.
Yes.
All of those fees approximate, oh, and there's an underwriter's fee as well. So all of those fees approximate $85,000, and then a potential bond insurance fee of about $35,000. We don't know if that'll be or not, but that's already included in the transaction. Your savings are net. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Goreb, I think you mentioned to me too that there would be some minimal out-of-pocket expenditures as well, and I think you said they totaled less than $1,000, or they were expected to total.
Yes, you will get reimbursed for that
Okay.
when the refunding goes forward, so those won't be out of pocket.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, at 8:04 p.m., we will close the floor for questions to Resolution 8 under Finance, and we will go to Resolution 8 under Finance and ask Ms. Librera to please move that.
Sure. Number 8, resolution of the Board of Education of the Borough of Rutherford in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, authorizing certain actions necessary in connection with the sale and issuance of not to exceed $12,500,000 aggregate principal amount of refunding school bonds, and authorizing the appropriate officials to do all acts and things deemed necessary and advisable in connection with the sale, issuance, and delivery of said bonds. Details as written.
And then do we have to read the other bold statement, which is the actual resolution?
Where's that one?
Yeah,
on the
it's,
bottom.
7 pages later?
Yeah.
That one? Okay.
There you go.
Page 19.
What?
Here it is, Sal.
Okay. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Rutherford in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, not less than 2/3 of all members thereof affirmatively concurring, as follows.
And then you don't need to read all the
Okay.
details.
As follows.
So do I have a, may I hear a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Jones. Are there any questions or comments from the board members regarding this resolution? No? Hearing none, we'll ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Mr. Arce?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lanny?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
So returning now to the agenda. And we move to the time where the superintendent would normally give his report, and I think there's a special report for us this evening.
Correct. The annual report of student achievement, you were sent a copy of the report, and I will make some reference to it and just walk you through some of the highlights of the report. So if you do have the report with you, it looks like this. If not, I'm just going to highlight a little bit. In this report, we have information about the all the tests, all the mandated and also, in some cases, voluntary assessments that students take. And the state requires still requires on grade 4 and 8, New Jersey asks for science, for high school students in the Jersey biology competency test, and the PARCC exams grades 3 to 11. On page 3 of the report, the scoring range for PARCC is explained. In the state of New Jersey, level 4 and 5 are considered, for lack of a better word, passing, meeting grade level expectations or exceeding grade level expectations. Some other states that are giving PARCC count level 3, 4, and 5 as passing. And if you look back at some of the old HESPA and New Jersey ASK scores of the past, you would see the numbers, if you put 3, 4, and 5, are very similar to what passing used to be on those scores. Generally speaking, this in the second year of PARCC, and you have graphs for every grade level, grades 3 through 11, for the subject area that the test was given. There are bars that indicate, and it's not the best graph that the state put out. You have to look at the numbers, and the bar is somewhat hard to follow. But you'll see, not in a proportional diagram, you'll see numerical numbers for the levels 4 and 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The only comparison contrast that they give to us is the state and the cross-state, which is the national or the other states that take the test. Generally speaking, well, not generally speaking, on every grade level we scored higher this year than last year. I want to come back to that in a moment, but just, it's all there for you to look at, but just I picked 3 grades, and I really did pick them randomly. Grade 3, and we scored higher than the state. Let's start with that, state and national. So in grade 3 in language arts, we were at 62% in range 4 and 5. State was at 47. Grade 6, we were at 72%. The state was at 52. Grade 10, we were at 72%. State was at 43. In language arts, generally speaking, we were significantly higher in every grade level than the state. In math, we were slightly to significantly higher in every grade level, depending on your definition of those terms. Using the same grades, grade 3, we were 55 compared to 52. Grade 6, 58 to 49. And geometry, because the high school is not by grade, it's by subject, 41 to 27. When you look at the grade level, now see, they sold this test, even though the report they're giving is showing you how grade levels did, and they're not showing you what happened last year. And if you remember, when they sold the test, and then I had to sell the test, right? The idea was going to be on student growth. Yet they're comparing grade 4, well, that's not fair. They're not, but that's what they're giving us, grade 4 this year compared to. But when I look back on last year, on every grade level, when you look at the kids who were in a grade the year before, and then you look at how the next grade did this year, we showed growth. For example, grade 9 language arts last year, 55% of the kids scored a 4 or 5. Grade 10 language arts this year, 72%. Grade 4 math last year, 55%. Grade 5 math this year, 62%. So, and basically they're the same students. So, you know, how are we doing? We're doing well. I mean, we're doing better than the state. We're doing better than the nation. We usually do better than the state and the nation. They don't give us anything else to compare it to. We're doing better than we did last year. But the most important thing about the test, we're not allowed to release. It's embargoed. So I'm going to just hold this up. I'm not really releasing it. You know, TV, if you're watching on TV, avert your eyes. But this, I mean, it's hard to see this chart. But I'm going to hold it up. See this chart? Yeah. Now, what this chart is for every grade level, every test, there's a red line and there's a blue line. The red line's the state, and the blue line's the nation. And then there's these green dots. And it shows where our students did on every question which is aligned to standards. So you can see, for example, we were very low, lower than the state and the nation on these 2 questions. And some were very high. So what we've done with this data mining is with our supervisors and teams of teachers, we've taken these graphs and we've looked at how our students did on questions aligned to certain standards in math and language arts. We've also looked for patterns where the standards and the results stay similarly high or similarly low on various grade levels. And then we go back to the curriculum, and we look back to lesson plans, and we go back to projects, and we work with the teachers to say, you know, why are we scoring low here? And what area can we look at in our curriculum to improve? So from that area, okay, I think this test is a very valuable tool. The data mining, the work that our supervisors, I mean, Ms. Schmedding and Mr. Salisi did a lot of work on each grade level with teachers to look at this evidence. Ms. Carrion has a team in Pierpont School right now of counselors and teachers looking at this evidence. Not whether the student scored a 4 or a 5 or a 3 or a 2, because I'm not so sure that's very important. I think what they're looking at is how we did holistically on certain test questions. And I think that's a valuable piece of the evidence. So, you know, I'm not displeased with the score. It's still in the 2nd year. We don't have a lot of comparative data, either in district or across the region, but our scores are higher than what we're compared to. They've gone up from last year. We've seen growth. What I am pleased with is the information is giving to the teachers and supervisors to look at curriculum. So before I move on to the report, anything about Park? with the rest of the,
So, yeah, so-
I'm going to move off Park.
Yeah, okay. As I looked through it, there were a couple of points that, where it looked like maybe there were differences, building level differences. I mean, they just grabbed my eye.
Yeah.
I was looking just at the red, so I don't know, does that, maybe that ties to the questions, the specific questions or not, but I don't know.
Well, I'm a little disappointed that the report came out like this and it has a building, because, we're trying to avoid that discussion of the building level, but there are some differences. There are some cases where one building scored, like this page I'm looking at right now, 48% to 42, 62 to 54. And in one case, now here we go in grade 6 math, Pierpont outscored Union by 8 points, and then on grade 7 math, Union outscored Pierpont by 6 points.
I noticed the same thing. I mean, the building differences changed.
I think it just depends on the students, who's focusing on the test and things of that nature. But also, to your point though, the graphs I allude to give the full details. We can see building level and district level breakdown. So if, for example, in terms of looking at the delivery of curriculum, there's a pattern in one school or the other, that does show in the analysis. I don't know if that's your question. It does break it down like that for us. Generally, I think when you look at it, they're statistically, there aren't too many cases where there's a major difference, but there are some. Any other questions? Okay, if we move on to the New Jersey Ask Science test, and if you look at pages 23 and 31, these scores are very consistent with past years. Grade 4 science, we are slightly below. We had 94.5% of the students, and this goes back to the old testing terminology of 3 levels, not 5 like Park. So you had partially proficient, proficient, advanced proficient. And 94.5% of our students, all students in the district, were at or above proficiency, slightly less than a percentage point under our DFG, about 5 or 6 percentage points above the state. Our general ed population, almost 100%, 99.5, which was above both the district factor and the state. Our special ed population, unfortunately, was below the district factor in the state at 62%. Generally speaking, though, the scores are solid and consistent with past years. Grade 8, although the percentage at or above is a little less, which happens as the science becomes a little more challenging, we are above both the district factor and the state with total students. With general ed, we're slightly behind the district factor, and we're above the state and district factor group with our special ed population. Once again, very consistent scores, not bad scores, not inconsistent scores with comparative groups of what we've done in the past. The focus of curriculum and the focus of our instruction following the new standards, there's some debate how much of that process is aligned with the formation of this test with some of the new standards. We have a feeling that once the contract with Measurement Inc. Runs out, the state will be moving away from these New Jersey Asked tests. And then the bugaboo always has been the biology test. Our scores are always lowest of any other state assessment. If you look at the district factor group and the state, they're the lowest of any state assessment. It has historically been that way. In fact, the 58.9% is about what we've always done, or 63% of regular ed. And honestly, I think the reason for that is it's given on the week of Memorial Day in May to high school students who know that this does not count towards their grade, does not count towards graduation, does not count towards anything. And I think it's hard, as much as I know when I was here, and I know now, the teachers, the supervisor, the principal tries to motivate the students to get out there and really focus on this 3-hour biology exam on a hot day on Memorial Day week. They, in the back of their mind, there's no meat to this. So And I think those numbers that are lower throughout the state in the district factor group indicate that this is a systemic issue with the test. Nonetheless, we don't get the kind of data from the Jersey Ask or the biology tests as we get from Park, but we do get some data, and we use it, again, to go back and look at curriculum and look at patterns and things like that. Before I move to SAT and ACT and AP, anything on the science?
So will we continue to take these tests?
We have to.
We will.
Well, no, until the state says we don't have to. My guess is, I think there's 2 more years, or maybe, I think it's 2 more years, that the contractual with Measurement Inc. is going to expire. We'll see if it continues at that point.
On the biology, the factors you cited regarding the timing in the year, or at the end of the year, but that's common timing for the state?
That's when the state gives you the test, right? Yeah. If you go on, all the parents in the district got an email about state testing. The state put out a bulletin on September 27th at 3 p.m. saying that we had to notify all our parents by October 1st of mandated testing dates. Even though those dates haven't been established yet, other than a window that Park can be given sometime between, I forget the date, March 3rd and April, whatever. So we put something out because we're going to be in compliance with the state, and we told people that real dates will come out to you later. But the biology test is set. That's the week they give it every year at the end of May, and it's usually the week either before or right of Memorial Day. And the biggest thing isn't the timing. If we told the kids this was a test that was for graduation or to get you into college, I mean, they would, they know. I mean, you could only try to sugarcoat it as much as you want. They know that this test doesn't have any real impact on their performance.
I can't help but ask, what are the other schools doing to get those students to do it?
Well, they really don't. I mean, when you look at the state, they're 56%. Our district factor group, remember we're in a pretty high district factor group now, is at 69%. You go back to the 4th grade test, we're at 95, they're at 95, almost 96.
On this Memorial Day weekend, are they doing something that we're not doing?
Yeah, they're taking the test and not doing well on it. They're doing the same thing, right? Yeah. No, it's probably the lowest scored test. I don't, and this is not a product of any change to Park. This has always been this way. This test has been in existence for about 12 or 13 years. We've always struggled with it. And it's hard to even convince, well, anyway, I don't want to go on and on about it. Anything else on the test?
Just kind of the same topic of the subject matter, and I know I went past the window for a question about Park.
Okay.
But if we could just step back for a moment to, I had a question. Now I've lost my page. Oh, on page 16 and 17. Just curious, so and I'm sorry, that's not it. It's actually more 18 and 19, where not just for us, but it seems like a difficult aspect of the mathematics assessment for algebra and for geometry is this area of reasoning, across the country. Is there what are the elements of that make it such a
Well, it's not formula-based, it's not solving a problem, it's more of critical and logical thinking, which is a shift in how math is being presented, and I think it's a dynamic change, so it's a little, it's deeper, it's more...
this is kind of crystal ball, but as you look at things like STEM, activities and such, I mean, would you anticipate those are the areas?
Yeah, I would anticipate that a lot of the longer periods, more project-based, more interdisciplinary work leads more to reasoning and logic, and rather than and less in terms of just being able to solve a problem.
I think that exchange sort of speaks to the value of the exam. I know that there's certainly been a lot of questions about the degree to which we're testing and teaching to the test, but if we're teaching kids to improve their reasoning skills, and if the data is pointing us in that direction, and it's really helping us focus on an area like critical thinking, seems like that's exactly the sort of thing that we would want assessments to be doing.
At the first roundtable a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I was talking about Park, and I'm not a big fan of I never was, of these state tests that measure whether you're going to graduate or whether the teacher's good, or to me, one test doesn't do that. But I do think that this test gives us much more detail, much more analysis, and much richer data than the other tests did. And I think that's what I've been trying to. I think the teachers have all calmed down a great deal about how this test may reflect on them, because I told them it really doesn't reflect on you. It reflects on curriculum, and we're going to work together to look at if there's an area of weakness, then we're going to look at the curriculum, and we're going to look at lesson planning, and we're going to look at how we present lessons and activities. So I think it has tremendous value. I think to the board's credit, to the administrators' credit in this community, we have never gone too crazy about test scores. We've never said, let's give ourselves a parade when they're high, or let's throw everybody out the door when they're low. But I think we've used it intelligently, and I think this test allows us to not focus on what grabs headlines, but focus on the stuff that really can guide the teachers and instruction a little bit. And I think if we can, the more this becomes the norm, on the high school level, you're still going to have to deal with students who pass the test in their first year and now they don't worry about it, and or students get caught up in the debate over it, and I'm not going to take it, or I'm not going to really focus on it. But even that, with people that are smarter than I am looking at data, they know how to take some of those statistical anomalies out and still get a good handle on the curriculum. So yeah, I think it does have value. I'm not that concerned whether Johnny gets a 4 or a 5. I'm more concerned with how, the hundreds of Johnnies and Janes are doing on particular skills. Okay. All right, moving on to SAT and ACT. There's charts for you. Once again, we've always stayed at or above the state average, and this year we are at the national average, and this year in the SATs. We showed growth, first of all, in critical reading and math, and we showed growth in a small decline in writing, which is marginal, from 514 to 509. Overall, our scores went up, and we were above the state and national average by a more significant margin than other years. Despite that growth, we have pretty much always plateaued with our SAT scores. If you look going back to 2005, there's been some growth, but there's also sometimes there's a revaluing of the grading of the test. I have as a goal, the high school has it as a goal to come up with a plan to try to increase those scores and to come up with a little more focus on those scores, because I would like them to be a little higher, be more in line with the growth we've seen in AP and some other areas. Nonetheless, though, if this is what they are, they're good. There's nothing negative about them. The ACT, which is another standardized national assessment used for college entrance, for the first time, we are above the New Jersey average in all the subject areas. And you'll also notice a higher number of students taking the test. One of the things that in the past, the ACT was not accepted by a lot of colleges on this part of the country, and a lot of colleges in general, and often was rightly or wrongly seen as a test that might be a better test for our less gifted students to take. So sometimes our numbers taking the test were small, sometimes they were the students who were in the lower percentiles of the class. That dynamic with the ACT is changing across the nation right now. More colleges are accepting it. More students are seeing the value in it. It is a little more aligned with the way Park is aligned, and I think that's why our scores went up a little this year and our number of students have gone up. That said, the SAT is changing the test this year to become more aligned with reasoning and more in times with project-based and less aligned. You know, they used to teach, Princeton Review would teach you how to take a test, not how to write a good essay necessarily, no knock on Princeton Review, or how to, you know, learn math. The SAT is now evolving into more reasoning, logic, and problem solving. Hence the need on the building level to come up with a plan to address the new SAT. But again, these scores are good, they're above average, and they're showing growth. On the AP, we're all, I think we've talked a lot about it. We continue to show, I know that chart's a little small, I'm sorry for that, but we continue to show an increase in the number of students that take the test from 55 in 2012 to 126 last year. Our percentage of students scoring 3 or higher from 72 and down to 69 in 2013, up to 91, almost 92 last year, and well, 2 years ago, and 88 this past year. We've received commendations 3 consecutive years from the College Board because of our growth in terms of number of students and also increase in student scoring, percentage increase of students scoring 3 or above. And you'll see by comparison how the state and national average of 3 or above is at 72 and 60, and we're at 88. So again, we're very pleased with the growth of our AP program. This year, we're adding AP Geography. This year, we're continuing to look at more AP courses each year as we go forward.
What's the most popular AP class?
Most popular AP class?
Yeah,
Probably English and language and literature.
Most students take the English AP?
Yeah. In fact, so much that we used to just do AP English Lit. Now we do AP English Lit and also AP English Language. And I believe there's multiple sections of both. Social studies is always popular. The math and sciences have grown. Psychology is extremely popular too, our AP Psych course. But really, the numbers have grown consistently over the last several years. And partly is a change of philosophy. We've stopped trying to be elite and saying, you know, you must meet all these very rigid standards to get in. If you need some standards, obviously, but if a student's willing to take the challenge, we're willing to give them a challenge. And then the profile graduation rate, again, the state changed the rules on this several years ago. Is now the cohort, which is the group that starts school 4 years before. How many of those students graduate? So last year we had one student of the kids who started senior year. Only one student failed to meet the requirement for graduation. So we had like 99%, graduate. But when you go back 4 years, students who maybe get held back a year, students who leave school, they go for a GED or things like that, they count against your cohort. So the 94.2 is about where we've been, in that 94 to 96 range. You see the asterisk, we have 2 students who left our school, they went to another school. The other school didn't claim them through the state database, so they're marked as not graduating, but we feel they did graduate from the school they went to. So we have an appeal in, and we're going to win the appeal because we know the kids did graduate. So when that happens, this number will probably climb to, 96 or something like that. But again, it's confusing because you say, wait a minute, I thought everybody graduated last year, or only one kid didn't. It's the students who sat in here this September, 4 years out, whether they get held back a year, transfer out, they're in that cohort. Drop out, whatever the case may be. Okay? And in some ways, I think that's a fairer picture of you graduates, right? Because they're with you the 4 years, or should have been with you. The problem with the first year they rolled this out, they didn't really do a good job of explaining it, and we went from 99% to 92, and people wondered, what happened. But I think now people understand it a little better. So any questions on any of that? Okay, and the only other thing I want to mention, which I didn't mention in my communication, I left out, and is there's a resolution to approve the New Jersey CUSAC, the Accountability Statement of Assurance. As you know, we were given a waiver last year. We were up for a visit, but we didn't need it. But every year, whether you're on the list to be visited or not, there's a document that I need to complete. Mr. Kelly completes part of it. I complete the bulk of it. It has to do with every aspect of school in terms of instruction, fiscal management, governance, personnel, operations, and it's a self-assessment, but it's a self-assessment that you have to be able to prove if they come to see you that you have the documents. So we have 100%, we hit everything, and we have to get that signed tonight, approved tonight, and sent out to the county office by November 1st.
Thank you. No questions on CUSAC? Okay, thank you. So moving on now to the report of the president, and having been, I think I sent you all a note apologizing for being AWOL in September, but I think I set a new personal best for time on an airplane and really bad carbohydrate intake from the meals that I was eating while I was traveling. So I very much appreciate all of you and your activities while I was gone. I'll just lift a couple of comments from the notes that Mr. Hurley sent to us to share with those who may be watching. Certainly we're all glad to hear that the first month of school has started and has run very smoothly. A few blips, a few little bumps that needed to be worked out, but I think they were addressed quickly and efficiently. So we appreciate that as the board. As I looked through the packet, I was impressed with the detail of specific programs being run at the different buildings for Respect Week and for Violence Awareness Week. I forget which building it was, but I remember I counted 25 specific activities that were for not just for students, but parents and staff as well. And I think I think that's the type of activity we want for our students outside of the academic aspect of school. The reminder that October 10th is a professional development day, so the students will not be in session, and the staff will be involved with various professional development activities. There will be a ribbon cutting ceremony at the Lincoln Woods project on October 18th at 9 a.m. Members of the public and board all invited to attend. The meeting on October 24th of the board will be in the auditorium.
Yeah, we'll start in the auditorium.
We'll start in the auditorium, and it's the annual Board of Education Scholastic Awards, which is always really nice to see how many of our students achieve that level of recognition academically. And then New Jersey School Board Convention, which will be held October 25th through 27th. And Mrs. Jones, Mr. Racine, and Mr. Arce will be attending. All are part of that, along with Mr. Kelly and Mr. Hurley. During October, the date we have to finish the board self-evaluations.
24th.
By October 24th. So before our next meeting, we need to, if not having done it, trip out to the New Jersey School Board's website and complete that evaluation, please. And then committee meetings. We haven't had committee meetings in a while. There's been, I spoke with Mr. Hurley about it earlier, and the fact is that with everything going on right now, there's nothing that is that's pending. I don't know if any of the committee chairs feel differently and would like to have a meeting scheduled. Finance will move into meetings in earnest as we move further on the budget, which Mr. Kelly always enjoys meeting with us on. But from the committee chairs, we're okay for, okay? Okay.
So we'll cancel the 10th.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're canceling?
We'll cancel the 10th. There really, I spoke to Mr. McLean. There's nothing on pending curriculum instruction. There's policies is right now all in Strauss Esme's lap. I expect a update from them maybe in a month or so. We'll meet then at that point. Building and grounds, again, there's nothing really pending right now. There is some, we will have some stuff probably in November, Mr. Kelly, right, or so, from some changes in coming out with water testing and things like that. But right now, that's still being developed by the state, and we're going to get information. Personnel, obviously, this time of year, there's not anything there, and finance, we're getting ready for the budget season soon. So I think in terms of just having a meeting to rehash things, it's not benefits anybody's time.
So no meetings on the...
No meeting, but I think that by the time we get to November, certainly early December, we will be up and running with probably all those committees, with the exception, maybe a policy. I'm waiting to hear from Strauss Esmond.
Thank you.
Okay, can I
Yes,
add,
please.
are you still? I don't
No,
know.
I reached the...
There's one other thing. I did include the administrative council minutes in this time. I don't know how many of you looked at those. And, we do have monthly meetings. I usually get the minutes like that. Summary, not really detail. I've never included them before. I'll continue to do that unless there's ever any reason why there's something that isn't ready to get to the board, But I think it's a good way for you to see, and also I think it allowed you to see what some of the other administrators and supervisors are doing. Some of their stuff doesn't always get up here.
I too appreciated reading through that, and I was going to ask that I be able to see it, but I think if the entire board could do it, and then if you're going to redact something,
Yeah, just redact it.
Make sure it's in black so we know that you've taken it.
Yeah, I'm taking it out. Yeah, I'll just put a thing. Don't read this paragraph.
Avert your eyes. So, okay, that'd be great. No, I thought it was very interesting to read through. Thank you. So it is 8:40, and we will reopen the floor to the public for comment on any other agenda item that we will be acting on shortly. And at 8:00, seeing none, at 8:04 we'll close the floor to the public, and we will move into new business to be taken. Are you on personnel? Who else is on personnel?
I am, but I have curriculum to do.
Yeah, so...
Who else is it? Greg, I think.
Greg.
I'm CNI and...
Yeah, well, would you be willing
do
to,
it, sure.
move the, in Mrs. Ahmed's place?
There's
and it's an extensive list.
There's an addendum too.
An addendum. So I think that, particularly since everyone present has a copy of the agenda and it's posted on the website, if you want to just read the motion number and the name, and I think that's satisfactory.
Yes, and obviously not the names of all the...
Right.
Yeah,
I understand.
Salaries.
Right. Okay, I gotta read the first paragraph there, right?
Yes.
Yes. It's a motion to move the following resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, reassignments, appointments, etc., as recommended by the superintendent of schools, pending approval from the State Department of Education, subject to the New Jersey criminal background check and other legal requirements.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Chu. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Please continue.
Okay. I'll try these names as good as Ms. Ahmed does.
Yeah, it's...
That's why I was worried. I'm like,
it's always a challenge. The best you can do is...
Right. Yes. Number 1, Travis Blau. These are all as listed in the... Number 1, Travis Blau. Number 2, Rita Fallon. 3, Caitlin Ratz. 4, Julianne Noara. 5, the Title I instructors as listed. 6, Devin Westra. 7, the salaries for secretaries as listed. 8, the custodial maintenance as listed. 9, faculty salaries as listed. Listed. Oops. 10, hourly employees as listed. And 11, home instructor as listed. 12, salary adjustments as listed. 13, recent monies. 14, retirement monies. 14, retirement monies. 13 for Dennis Mullins. 14 for Irene Amethyst. 15, Robin Peck. 16, Sandra Gonzalez. 17, substitute teachers as listed. 18, substitute teacher assistant as listed. 19, substitute lunch monitors. 20, Lindsay Acker. 21, Eric Farrell. 22, the Strategic Planning Committee appointment as listed. I'll make a note. Okay. 23, Angela Cipollina. 24, travel reimbursements as listed. And we have 1A, Angela Cipollina. Is that taking over 22, 23, or is it?
No, 1A.
1A is
separate. Okay. Okay, 1A, Angela Cipollina. 2A, Patricia Erdaz. 3A, Kyle Smith.
Thank you.
That's it.
Do I hear a second to motions under personnel, motions 1 through 24, 1A, 2A, and 3A? Seconded by Mrs. Jones. Are there any questions or comments regarding any of these resolutions? I have none. I would ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Mr. Arce?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lanning?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes, except for 24, where I believe my name is there, and number 22. I abstain on those. The Planning Committee, where my name is on, was on there.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried, thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, excellent pronunciation of names. You may be next in line for that activity.
Shelley
that was
loses
very
her
good.
job.
Good pace.
Yeah, good pace.
Good pace.
Everything was really high scores. Really good. Really
It's an
good.
easy crowd, though, to be fair. This is-
So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're
And
welcome.
so we move on to curriculum and instruction, and I would ask Ms. Kalani, please.
Okay. The following resolutions to be approved by the Board of Ed. Number 1, home instruction for student 17093, student 10174, and student 16775. Number 2, resolution number 2, ESL 3-year program. Number 3, field trips. Number 4, out-of-district placements. And number 5, the resolution to adopt the report by NJQ-SAC. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And I've just been informed that we will strike resolution number 4 as there are no new out-of-district placements that we'll be placing that stayed on as boilerplate in the format. So do I hear a second to curriculum and Mrs. Jones? And so this is on 1, 2, 3, and 5 under curriculum and instruction. Ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Actually, can I ask a question first?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just curious about the ESL 3-year program. Does anyone have details on
We
that?
have to, by the state, have a program on file, which is our curriculum. And the fact that we offer it, what grade levels, what's offered. And similar to the nursing program that we approved last month, these are...
So there's no changes? It's
No change, no. It's
documentation.
just state requirement that every 3 years you adopt a program.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I moved a little fast there. Thank you. Secretary to poll the board, please.
Mr. Arce?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lanning?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to finance and ask Ms. Libera to take that, please. Of course, we've already done number 8.
Okay. Number 1, the approval of bills totaling $1,538,729.64. Number 2, to approve the Secretary Treasurer report for July 2016. Number 3, to approve the budget transfers from July 1st, 2016 through July 31st, 2016. Number 4, to approve the Secretary Treasurer's report for August 2016. Number 5, to approve the budget transfers for the period of August 2016. Number 6, to agree to the contract with the Department of Children and Families Office of Education to educate student 13069 at a rate of $1,329.90 per month from 9/1/16 through 6/30/17. And number 7, to approve the transportation service agreement with Passaic County Educational Service Commission to provide Rutherford School District transportation of the students and providing for the payment to said NRESC for said transportation as listed.
Thank you.
No, I just want to say the Passaic County Educational Services Commission has changed its name to the Northern Region Educational Services Commission, so that's why
The acronym doesn't match.
the acronym doesn't match the name, but it's the same entity.
Okay. So, we'll just make note of that, and it will be corrected in the minutes, the name change for that entity. Do I have a second for Finance Resolutions 1 through 7, please?
Second. I have a question as well.
Mr. Arce, second. And any questions or comments? Yes.
Was this an anticipated expense? Because I just noticed the time frame is a really short window, from September 8th to the end of this month.
It's the way the billing is. It's the students there, right? I mean, it's the students placed there for a year, but this is how I guess the contract came from the bus. They bill us in monthly
Yeah,
or
I think
bi-monthly.
this one came up kind of at the last minute, so they do a just kind of a temporary.
Right. This is one that did
Transportation.
without saying what happened, but there was a need to switch the bus at the start of school, so we had to get to a different company. So probably the next bill would be for the remainder of the school year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? None. I will ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Mr. Arce?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lanny?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Under policy, we have nothing on the agenda for this evening.
That is correct.
Any questions or comments there? Buildings and grounds, nothing on the agenda. And under old business.
Just
Yes,
one thing,
Mrs.
I
Jones?
did attend all of the back-to-school nights. They were very well attended, every single one of them. I had the distinct pleasure of seeing the Z Space set up in Union School for the 7th and 8th grade. Mr. Schweitzer gave me a demonstration of it. I was fascinated with it. I had 3D glasses, taking part of a cow and coming out and looking at the ribs. It was a wonderful experience. It's a fabulous investment from the REF, from the board, to give this opportunity to our students. But I'm thrilled with that. It's a really great thing.
Can I say, on Z-Space, I'm going to make a suggestion, not now, but I'll just put it in your heads, that when Union School does their presentation, we bring schools in, that we maybe move the meeting that night to Union School.
Wonderful.
And then we could take a walk to the Z-Space. And I mean, that's good. I think they're in January or February, so we have time to think about that. But I think that would be a great thing to see. We could have the meeting in Union School's auditorium, and we could see Z-Space demonstrated as part of the Union School's presentation.
It's a wonderful.
That'd be a good idea. With carrying that forward, have we ever actually done our meetings in different buildings for the purpose of...
Years ago we did.
No, but I think, well, yeah, years ago. Well, I am going to move the high school's presentation to after the new year, because in reality, they come in November, there's a month into the school year, a month and a half, they don't really have things to show. So maybe I'll address with the principals if there's something they'd like us to see on site, instead of bringing kids here, we could plan accordingly.
I don't know if the rest of the board feels that. I think that'd be
Yeah.
interesting to
Yeah.
get into a different
Yeah.
venue and
Yeah.
get closer to the building.
That's fine.
Might even-
We talked about setting a calendar up. We could talk about that. Yep.
Very good.
I think it would be.
One more thing. I did send everybody an email. I have raffle tickets if you didn't get them home with your children. The REF's casino night is on November 11th. If you could make that, that would be wonderful. That is a Friday night. It's the 2 days off from school. And if anybody would like to take a family ad, if you can't make the casino night, for $25 you can have your name in the ad journal for it. All things which help us to reach our goal this year. More Z-Space, standing desk, whatever that is. And by the way, the administrators really like the standing desk.
Yeah, as I don't have one now, right?
Maybe you should get one.
Yeah, well,
I'm telling
maybe.
you.
There's no money left to get them up. They're all getting one.
I saw a couple of them. They all like them. They told me.
Yeah, I know. I like sitting. Sitting is good.
I like sitting here.
just to, I fessed up that I was AWOL much of September, and luckily you put in above and beyond, attending all of these back-to-school nights on behalf of the board. We appreciate that. Thank you. And I know many were at the back-to-school nights being parents and such. I missed that this year.
Many parents there.
Thank you. And on legislative update?
Can I have one old business comment based on communication on, I think in terms of, I think it's good to let me know if you hear things. But I do think one of the things, and I spoke to Ms. McLean about this, some folks, I'd like them to communicate with their building principals too. So if they have a question as a board member and they get you at a soccer game, ask them if they've spoken to their building principal. Because a lot of the day-to-day concerns that really aren't even problems can be addressed by the building principal, or the building principal can tell the parent why it can't be addressed. Certainly I would love to know, because it's always nice to know what's going on. But, that's a good thing to get them to, to open that door of communication with the building administrator.
So that should be something that's just kind of our standard, feedback to someone who's giving us comments. If it's a building issue, to remind them that the normal course is to go through the.
Yeah. And if they have, and they haven't gotten anywhere, then ask them to call me. Usually when someone calls me on a building issue, the first thing I say is, did you speak to the principal? Did you speak to the supervisor? Because, you want the chain of command to be there. But often, these are really not big problems. There are things that sometimes can be tweaked a little bit, or, the explanation makes sense to the person why something isn't happening.
Legislative?
Just one. The Senate is, on Thursday, September 15th, the full Senate gave approval to the school funding reform plan. SCR-119 establishes a state school aid funding fairness commission that would be in charge with studying various issues related to school funding. The 6-member commission would examine and make recommendations on such issues as the impact of adjustment aid and state aid growth limits, the 2% tax levy cap, the per pupil administrative spending limit, and the factors used to determine the district's local share of its adequacy budget, and the ability of a district at or above adequacy to lower its school tax levy in the event it receives additional state aid pursuant to the Commission's recommendation. The Commission's final report would be February 1st, 2017. So I don't know if that's going to impact us at all, but to watch it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So the commission is formed now, and their final report is to be February 1st?
Right. They formed it. But as of September 15th, they formed it.
Yeah. It's an incredibly fast-moving
It will slow down.
commission.
It will slow down.
Very, very good. It is 8:57, and we now open the meeting to the public to address any topic the public might wish. And we close the meeting to the public at the same time. We do have a need for an executive session this evening to discuss a student matter.
5 minutes max. It's really quick.
Move that we move to executive session to discuss a student matter.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McDonald. No action will be taken. And we expect to be back in 5 minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We move to executive session.